Minister of Malaysia, Yang Amat Berbahagia Tun Dr Siti Hasmah binti Muhammad Ali, Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri Setia Awang Haji Hamzah bin Haji Sulaiman, Minister of Education and Chair of UBD Council, Yang Mulia Datin Dr Haji Anita bin Zahwina binti Pihak Orang Kaya Laila Wijaya, Datuk Seri Setia Haji Awang Abdul Aziz, Vice Chancellor Universiti Brunei Darussalam, Yang Berhormat Cabinet Ministers, respected UBD Council members, respected Deputy Ministers, senior government officials and principal officers of UBD, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon and welcome to the distinguished lecture on the topic Malaysia-Brunei Darussalam Relations in the Context of ASEAN by Yang Amat Berhormat Tun Dr Utama Dr Mahathir Mohamad, Prime Minister of Malaysia, organised by Universiti Brunei Darussalam. Before we proceed with our event today, we would like to call upon Yang Mulia Imam Haji Muhammad Sadullah bin Haji Saleh to bless our event today with the recital of the Surah Al-Fatiha and Doa Selamat.
Astaghfirullahalazim. Astaghfirullahalazim alladzi la ilaha illa wal hayyul qayyum wa atubu ilayh. Ila hadratin Nabi al-Mustafa Rasulillah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وإلى أرواح والدينا ووالديكم وإلى أرواح المسلمين والمسلمات كافة عامة. الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين آمين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه والتابعين. اللهم إنا نسألك ونتوجه إليك بنبيك الأمين والأنبياء والأولياء والصالحين، ونسألك بأسمائك الحسنى وصفاتك العظمى وكلماتك التامة أن تلحظ بعين عنايتك الربانية وتحفظ بحفظ وقايتك الصمدانية جلالة الملك بهدوري yang maha mulia Paduka Seri Baginda Sultan Haji Hasan Bulqiyah Mu'izzuddin wad Daulah Ibn al-Marhum Sultan Haji Umar Ali Saifuddin Sa'adul Khairi wad Din Sultan Pertuan Negara Brunei Darussalam. Allahumma hafazhu fi nafsihi wa ahlihi wa awladihi wa qarabatihi wa ra'iyatihi ajma'in. Allahumma adimhu mutamatti'an bitulil baqa mutawwajan bitijani as-sihhati wal hana. Allahumma atil umrahu muslihan lil mu'azzafin wal ra'iyati wal bilad wa balligh maqasidahu li tariqil huda wal rashad. Allahumma ij'al mamlakatahu negara Brunei Darussalam معمورة بالتقدم والسلام والعدل والصلاح والبركة بين الأنام والرخاء والأمن والنصر وسائر بلاد الإسلام. اللهم ارفع عنا وعن سلطاننا البلاء والوباء والأمراض والأسقام وعزل عنا وعنهم الشكوك والأوهام بمنك وكرمك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم اهدنا وبارك لنا ووفقنا لطاعتك أجمعين وجعلنا هادين مهتدين غير ضالين ولا مضلين. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه برحمتك يا أكرم الأكرمين ويا أرحم الراحمين. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Yang Amat Berhormat, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Next we invite Yang Mulia Datin Dr Haji Anita bin Zahwina binti Pihak Orang Kaya Laila Wijaya, Datuk Seri Setia Haji Awang Abdul Aziz, Vice Chancellor Universiti Brunei Darussalam, to introduce Yang Amat Berhormat Tun Dr Laila Utama Dr Mahathir Mohamad, Prime Minister of Malaysia.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Yang amat berhormat Tun Dr Laila Utama Dr Mahathir bin Mohamad, Prime Minister of Malaysia, Yang amat berbahagia Tun Dr Siti Hasmah bin Haji Muhammad Ali, Yang berhormat Datuk Seri Setia Datuk Awang Haji Hamzah bin Haji Sulaiman, Minister of Education and Chair of UBD Council, Yang berhormat Cabinet Ministers, Yang Mulia Deputy Minister, Permanent Secretaries, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. UBD is honoured to host a distinguished speaker, Yang amat berhormat Tun Dr Utama Dr Mahathir bin Mohamad, the Prime Minister of Malaysia. Yang amat berhormat is of course no stranger to Brunei Darussalam. The relationship between Brunei Darussalam and Malaysia is a historic one, bound by not only our geographical proximity but also by our common language and culture. Yang amat berhormat holds the distinction of being the world's oldest serving Prime Minister. He has recently demonstrated that his ideas and leadership transcends across the generational divide and still resonates with the younger Malaysian electorate. What Yang amat berhormat has achieved is, in political history, a rare and remarkable accomplishment indeed. Yang amat berhormat, ladies and gentlemen, developing innovative ideas that can transcend across the generations by creating and demonstrating relevance to real-life challenges is the bread and butter of the world's best universities. UBD is one of the fastest rising young universities in the world, where innovation and creativity are the primary thrust in our research and teaching trajectories. This requires inculcating among our students and the general public as well a culture of lifelong learning. UBD in this regard continuously strives to innovate pedagogical methods and develop novel programs and its delivery through the utilization of advanced technologies. All these advancements and creative efflorescence are established upon Islam's inherent learning dispositions, the sciences, medicine, engineering, and the social sciences. At the same time, we at UBD are aware that the ancient Muslims' civilizational accomplishments were the result of much hard work, industry, and above all, ikhlas for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in all that we do. Today, we are given the privilege to have Yang amat berhormat Tun Dr Utama Dr Mahathir bin Mohamad, Prime Minister of Malaysia, to deliver a distinguished lecture. The advice of Yang amat berhormat to us today will be, I am sure, another important contribution to the advancement of our institution. Yang amat berhormat Tun Dr Utama Dr Mahathir Mohamad was born on 10th July 1925. Yang amat berhormat is currently serving as the Prime Minister of Malaysia for the second time. He previously served as the 4th Prime Minister of Malaysia from 1981 to 2003, making him Malaysia's longest serving Prime Minister. Yang amat berhormat is also currently the chairman of the Pakatan Harapan, as well as a member of the Parliament of Malaysia for the Langkawi constituency in Kedah. Born and raised in Alustar, Kedah, Yang amat berhormat excelled at school and became a medical doctor after studying medicine at the King Edward VII College of Medicine in Singapore, now part of National University of Singapore. Yang amat berhormat has led the country through a fast-paced modernization drive that earned Malaysia's international recognition as an industrial powerhouse. Under his leadership, several mega infrastructure projects took place, notably the Kuala Lumpur City Centre, Petronas Twin Towers, Kuala Lumpur International Airport, and Multimedia Super Corridor. Yang amat berhormat opened Malaysia to foreign investments, reduced international trade barriers, privatized government services, as well as established Organization. In 2018, making a stunning political comeback at the age of 93, the coalition he led won the general elections and he was elected as Malaysia's 7th Prime Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, I present you the Prime Minister of Malaysia, Yang Amat Berhormat Tun Dr Dr Mahathir Mohamad, to address us on the topic of Malaysia-Brunei Darussalam relations in the context of ASEAN.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yang berhormat Menteri Pelajaran Brunei, yang berhormat Menteri Luar Negeri, yang berbahagia Vice Chancellor Universiti Brunei, adik-adik Majlis Universiti, tuan-tuan puan-puan hadirin sekalian. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Firstly, I would like to say thank you to the University of Brunei for this invitation to speak to this distinguished audience of academics and many others. I must congratulate Brunei University because it has grown so very fast. When I asked just now how many people graduated 1 week ago when you had your convocation, I was told that 1,400 graduates graduated so soon after young university was born. So the growth is very rapid, and I think the growth of the state of Brunei also is very rapid. I've not been here for quite some time, and when I arrived yesterday, I was amazed to see how much development has taken place during that short period of time. Malaysia and Brunei has always been close together. In the days before we had Malaysia, in the days when there were the Malay states in the peninsula, Brunei was already a close friend. Of course, after we became a federation, we continued to have good relations with Brunei. And eventually, we became members of the ASEAN group of countries in Southeast Asia. Now, relationship between nations are very important. Sometimes there will be conflict, sometimes there will be good relations. Whether there is conflict or not, nations should try and avoid confrontations and conflicts resulting in wars. The relationship with Brunei has been something that we have fostered together. It's not only on the part of Brunei, but also on the part of Malaysia. There is a desire to be close together, to be friends, and to help each other. This, of course, is partly because we are people of the same race, and we have the same language, and also the same culture, and we are largely Islamic states. Language may differ somewhat when spoken locally. I come from the state of Kedah, and the Kedah dialect is not understood by the Selangor dialect, and also by the Johor people. So when I married somebody from Selangor, we had to adjust. We both speak Malay, but different kinds of Malay. The Kedah Malay is a little bit rough, but Selangor Malay is much more like standard Malay. But that did not get in the way of our being married. So it should be the same with countries like Malaysia and Brunei. I'm quite sure in Brunei you have certain words where we don't understand, and we have certain words that you don't understand, but largely we speak the same language. And of course, when we speak literal Malay, the common Malay that we now use, the language is, well, is the same. So that brings us close together. That we are largely Muslims is also another factor. And our culture too resembles each other very much. This morning I had breakfast with His Majesty, and the food served was like the food served in Malaysia, excepting that they miniaturize it. What used to be big kui in Malaysia becomes very tiny one. But I'm not unfamiliar with them. So there are so many factors why we should be close to each other, because of so many similarities between us. So all along, Malaysia and Brunei has kept a good relations. There may have been some little differences, but they don't last for very long. Very quickly we forget about the past and we look into the future in which Malaysia and Brunei will work together. Then there is the ASEAN grouping. Today ASEAN has got 10 members, but originally there were only 5 until Brunei joined, and then later on all the other countries of Southeast Asia joined to form this entity, this regional organization called ASEAN. Within ASEAN, the fact is that the Malay-speaking people dominated. We speak the same language in Malaysia, of course, in Indonesia and in Brunei. These 3 countries added together make up about almost half the population of Southeast Asia. We should actually be doing very well, because a big population, even if the people are quite poor, but the numbers contribute towards making a big nation or a big population a good market. Now, market drives trade, and trade, of course, increases wealth. We should be trading with each other without any hindrance. But of course, we have some problems about borders and the like, and these come in the way of much closer trade relations between countries. But between Brunei and Malaysia, there is less separation. In fact, the eastern part of Malaysia, constituting of Sabah and Sarawak, is very close to Brunei. And I think at this moment, the benefit, of course, goes to Sabah and Sarawak, because the ringgit is only 1/3 the value of the Brunei dollar, which means that our products are 1/3 as cheap as in Brunei. Of course, the products, goods in Peninsular Malaysia also much cheaper than in Brunei, which cause a lot of tourists to come to Malaysia to spend their money, which will buy more things in Malaysia than in Brunei itself. At one time, of course, 1 Brunei dollar is the same as 1 ringgit, but somehow or other the ringgit has depreciated. Today it is 4 ringgit to 1 US dollar. I don't know why it happens, but you know, the market determines the value of the ringgit. If I had my way, I would determine the value of the ringgit as I did in '97. But now I have lost control, and maybe after coming back to, I won't regain that kind of control that I had before. But as far as Brunei is concerned, the policy of this new government of Malaysia will be the same, that we want to continue to be friends of Brunei, to be work together with Brunei. We would like to be participating in any development that is happening in Brunei. And we know that this university itself has had vice chancellors, I think, from Malaysia. So the closeness is there. It is up to us to find ways and means for us to work with each other to our mutual benefit. That is what we look forward to. And this new government of Malaysia will do its utmost in order to strengthen that relationship. Well, relationship between countries will be enhanced by the friendship between the leaders. I would like to claim that I know His Highness, His Royal Highness, His Majesty the Sultan quite well, even so far as to claim to be a friend of his. So when we meet and talk, we speak the same language and we understand each other, and that facilitates the relationship, the strengthening of relationship between Malaysia and Brunei. I look forward to working closely with Brunei. During the short term, I'm going to be Prime Minister of Malaysia, and I'm quite sure working together would be productive for both Brunei and for Malaysia, and would enhance the role of Brunei and Malaysia in the ASEAN group of countries. I hope that this will see a very fruitful future for this country, because the international scene is changing very fast, and we need to understand what is happening in the rest of the world, and we have a need to adjust to these new changes that are taking place in the world and in this part of the world. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dengan izin yang amat berhormat, we would like to take questions from the floor. If I may request, before you ask your question, if you can introduce yourself, please state your name, the faculty organization that you're from. Thank you. This one, and then there, in black.
Can you hear my voice clearly?
Please introduce yourself first. Okay.
Currently, and it's often easy to
All countries, but there are some which will be more needed than another. For Malaysia, of course, roads are very important, because we are a peninsula. It is very long, and we need to communicate with each other, so we need roads. So the first thing that we did was to build a north-south highway. And when you build a north-south highway, you build a highway anyway. Development takes place along the way. Then, of course, we need to have water, because people want to have good, clean water to drink. So that too will be attended almost simultaneously with the highway. And then, of course, there is a need for electricity. Later on, if you need, you may want to do a train, have a railway line, ports, airports, and all that. These come a little bit later, but nevertheless, they are essential. They can begin small, but they can grow over time. So that's how we make a choice, we make a decision as to what do we need first that we can invest with the money that we have. We can borrow, but don't borrow too much. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum yang berhormat. I'm Colonel Saiful Ahmad bin Muhammad Sharif, currently the Commandant of the Defense Academy, seconded to doing a work attachment at the Institute of Policy Studies here. My question is about strategic leadership. Have you found perhaps maybe that your strategic narrative has changed a lot or differed a lot from the last time you were the Prime Minister and now that you're the Prime Minister, albeit, as you've alluded to, temporarily? And has that actually won the hearts of perhaps the Electoral College in Malaysia, you think, anticipate in the near future? Thank you.
Well, a leader must think about solving the problem of the country. He has to decide on what plans to use, what strategy to adhere to. But one of the most important things, of course, is get things going. When I became Prime Minister in 1981, everything was in place. The machinery of government was working fine. All I need to do is to decide on what to do with the machinery and the money that we had. So things went on very smoothly. This time it is totally different. We are actually very nearly bankrupt because of the amount of money that we borrowed. And secondly, the machinery of government has been spoiled. It has been turned not into a machinery for the governance of the country. It was turned into a machinery for supporting the previous government in order to win elections. So now we find that first we have to attend to our borrowings, the loans that we have. As you know, if you don't pay your interest, you can be declared bankrupt. So we have to find the money to pay interest and also the principal later on. That is a tough thing because assets have got to be sold in order to get the money, because we are not collecting enough taxes in order to service the loans even. And the new ventures that we went into, or rather the previous government went into, could not yield enough profit to service the loans. That is a big problem for us. Then we have to work with the machinery of the government which has been spoiled. We need to remove people, appoint new people, restructure the government. So this is taking us costing us a lot of time and money. So we are now unable to do the kind of things that we did before to grow the country, to develop the country. Now it is to correct the mistakes of the past. But that is a straightforward strategy, nothing very complicated about it. But soon we will have to meet the people's expectations. They want the country to begin to develop again. And for that, we still have to depend upon foreign direct investment, local domestic investment, and the management of the finances of the country. We can do that. We have some experience, and I think given a little time, we may be able to recover. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum, Tun. My name is Sufrizo and I'm a PhD student in Konteks. There are more females than males in higher institutions worldwide. My question is,
Is this happening in Malaysia, and if so, what is the impact to the Malaysian economy? Thank you, Tun.
I'm afraid we have the same problem. In the universities, more than 60% of the students would be female, would be girls. Unfortunately, my time was not so. In my time, the only girl there was happened to be my wife now. But now the boys have a lot of choice. But why is it so? Why is it that there are not enough boys to study? Somehow or other they are not motivated. They are playful. They don't want to be serious about their future. I believe that this has something to do with upbringing, because the upbringing of a child is very important in order to point him in the right direction. When you have a society in which both father and mother now work, they don't have enough time for their children. They don't spend quality time with their children to implant in them the values that will make them good character in the future. But somehow or other the girls seem to absorb good values, and they are doing very well. Now we are seeing more girls heading, more women heading ministries than ever before. And of course they have also invaded the cabinet, my cabinet. But they are contributing. So the boys had better back up. Of course now we cannot cane them. That is not allowed. But I think one of the things that we need to do, and we have decided to do this in Malaysia, is that to implant good values in our little children when they were still in the kindergarten. That is the time when they are impressionable. If you wait until later, they have hardened, they have learned all the bad things from their friends, then it will be very difficult to shape them. But if we start in the kindergarten and we implant in them good values about hard work, about being diligent, about being trustworthy and all that, then they will grow up, I think, to be more serious about their future, and perhaps they will go to the university. Thank you.
Percent of our students are female in this university. I think Professor Jeremy James.
Good afternoon, Tun Dr Prime Minister. My name is Jeremy James. I'm an Associate Professor at the Institute of Asian Studies, UBD. You just mentioned the need, and this is a global need for water, for electricity. And actually, my research institute here has a very fruitful cooperation project with University of Malaya, and especially the Institute of China Studies. And we just set up together a good project on energy consumption, energy production in Southeast Asia. So Malaysia, as other countries of ASEAN, actually has already embarked in the what we call the energy transition period. So what would be the approach of your cabinet regarding this energy transition, and what would be, according to you, the measures to take, maybe nationally or at the ASEAN level, to achieve it? Thank you.
Thank you. Before we just decide that we need water, we build a dam and we get the supply of water. The same thing with electricity. If you have water-based electricity, then you just do the same thing. But today we have to consider the environment. We cannot just place our dams anywhere we like. We have to think of the animals living in the forest. We cannot cut down the trees and all that. So that limits our choice. we have to be more careful about how we dam up rivers and also generate electricity. If you use too much fuel, oil, petroleum and all that, you are going to cause a lot of pollution. But on the other hand, whatever you use in order to generate power can be reduced in terms of pollution, and the power can then be used by other, by motor vehicles, for example, where electric-driven cars would emit less noxious gases. So all these factors have got to be taken into consideration now. I believe that Malaysia still has good potential for power generation, but it will not be much from the hydro power because we don't have big rivers. We will have to use cleaner material, and we are also resorting to solar panels. But solar panels require huge areas, so that is a limitation. So in order to provide for the needs of the country, which will grow all the time, we need to be very careful about how we generate power and how we collect water. Malaysia is blessed with a lot of rain, but a lot of rain doesn't mean that you can get water. It is how you catch the rainwater. Perhaps all roofs in the future will have to be catchment areas so that the rainwater is not wasted. Today, Malaysia is not short of electricity, not short of water, but in the future there will be a problem, especially for the islands. Langkawi Island has been developed as a tourist destination, but Langkawi has not enough water. Water has got to be piped from the mainland, and now we are again reaching the limit. We need to put in more pipes, but fortunately there is enough water from the mainland to be piped into Langkawi. So in future, all islands will face this problem. But there are now new ways of generating electricity and new ways of deep water wells, for example, which will provide water even for isolated islands. So all these points have got to be taken into consideration. And we in future think that we may have to generate electricity from Sumatra. Already we are selling electricity to Singapore, and many ASEAN countries are buying electricity from countries like Laos, which has good power supply, water supply. So these are the many things that has been taken into consideration. Since Brunei is close to Sabah and Sarawak, and Sarawak has got huge hydro potential. So maybe at a stage later, Brunei might be able to source electricity from Sarawak. But I noticed that although Brunei is small, its rivers are big. So maybe from some point or other, we may be able to generate hydroelectric power in Brunei itself. Thank you.
We haven't taken one from the back. So perhaps gentleman in blue.
My name is Abdul Mujib Jafar, and I'm a Master of Government student with Ilya. My question to Yang Amat Berhormat Tun, what would your advice to the young generation, especially with the current challenges, as you mentioned, more motivation are needed, and also the upbringing values and characters, as you find your motivation and your driven factors in facing the current challenges? Thank you.
I was very fortunate because when I was young, there were no TV, no telephone to distract me, no computer to distract me. But today's youth are distracted by the availability of all kinds of entertainment. They like to be entertained. And when they use a computer, it's not because they want to learn something, but rather it is because they can play games. And they can, access news which are not really very useful. The problem that I see among the youth is that this distraction is bad for them. We need to have some control, but of course we now appreciate freedom very much. We don't try to control anything. We cannot cane children, for example. When I was small, I was caned by my master. But now, of course, you do that, the parents will come for you. So we need to have some distraction for the children so that they are distracted with good things rather than bad things. There are ways of entertaining them at the same time teaching them. So we are at the moment in Malaysia trying to produce books using IT in order that they will see cartoons and the cartoons will tell them what they need to know. That means they are being entertained and getting knowledge at the same time. In future, I think the internet will be the source of knowledge for most people. And it will be very comprehensive. Almost about everything that you want to know now can be accessed through the internet. So the young people should be entertained, but should also find things that are both entertaining and also would give them some new knowledge that they will need. The future is in IT because this is the most powerful technology that we have ever found. With this technology, you can control about everything. Now you don't have to wire wires to reach the object you want to control. Through RFID and the rest, you can control. Nowadays, remote control is so powerful that you can actually control a drone 7 miles away from you. So these are things that we must acquire because the drone is both an entertainment. You can play with it, but also you can learn a lot of things from it. Thank you.
So we're entering the fourth industrial revolution. Ashton? We have a mic down here. I'll come back to this side after this.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Before I ask my question, I would like to welcome Tun to Universiti Darussalam. I am the current student president of UBD, Student Association. And on behalf of all UBD students and UBD family, would like to say welcome to UBD. So my question is related to the fourth industrial revolution. What knowledge and skills you view as important for youth to master and excel?
Yeah, we are in the fourth industrial revolution. We talk about 4.0, and I might say that I am past that already. We know that what caused the new industrial revolution is the new knowledge, particularly the discovery of microchips. With the microchip, you can do almost anything that you like. You can control satellites way out in outer space. You can also control drones and cars and all that, so that you can have driverless cars. All these things have become possible because of new technology. One is the capacity of the microchip, the other one is the sensors. The sensors that somehow or other can tell you exactly where you are. And also, if a car comes near you, the car will sense the next car which is too close, or somebody wants to approach the car, already the car will scream. That is the level of science that we have reached today. I had never thought that it could be possible. For example, your handphone. Your handphone is both a broadcasting station as well as a receiving station, but it can do much more than the old radios or TV station, the big houses with all the complex machinery and circuits and all that. Now in your pocket you carry a broadcasting station, a whole broadcasting station, and you can talk to somebody in New York at the same time without any relay, without having to call an operator. So every one of us have become very powerful. But the thing is, how do we make full use of this power that we have? You hear people coming up with Google and the other systems, Facebook, etc. These people understand the power and how to make use of the power to improve your way of life. This man in China, for example, Alibaba, his name is, that's the company's name. He is Jack Ma. I met him recently. He's a fantastic man. He can see what you can use, how you can use this power in order to enrich everybody. Today, you may, in the past, of course, when somebody in the village produces some small product, like from bamboo, or even cook a cake, the market is confined to that village. At the most, it can reach the next town. But today, your market is actually the whole world. Because when you go online, you can market your product throughout the world. And you don't have to spend so much money on advertising and middlemen. So it is the idea that you have that can empower the power that is given to all of us. So young people are more able to think of new things. Old people are resistant. That is why you find old people not able to cope with their computer. Whereas the young people are forever fiddling with their telephones and doing all kinds of things. Sometimes not so good. So the young people have a great future for them because they understand there is no limit. The old people think there is a limit. When I first bought a tape recorder, I understand that tape recorder is like a gramophone, excepting that you record the sound on the tape. And later on, they gave me a recorder that is very small. And they said, this can record. There's no tape there, nothing at all. There is some microchip there, hearing what you say, recording it, and speaking back to you. It is much more powerful than the old tape recorder. For me, it is almost difficult to think that this small thing can replace that big tape recorder. But in the future, the young people will find that this small thing, which they have accepted, can do wonders, will do more wonders for them. So the thing to do for the young people is to understand IT, understand electronics, understand the power of the microchip, which today controls almost everything that we do. Thank you.
Thank you. 1990, sorry, I'm Ahmed Khalid. I'm from the School of Business and Economics, UBD. 1997 witnessed your very strong stance on currency and capital controls, which later turned out to be the best policy for Malaysia. The world economic order has changed since then. China has become a big power in financially as well. And one of the things that perhaps is something that we are looking into the future is Chinese currency becoming more important than US dollar. China is very active in bilateral and multilateral negotiations on using Chinese yuan as a trade transaction, trade currency. ASEAN as a group is a major trading partner. I would like to know your views about both in terms of ASEAN and specifically Malaysia, if you think that Chinese currency will take over US dollar in the next 5 to 10 years. Thank you.
Why do you use the US dollar? That is because at Bretton Woods they decided that the US dollar is the standard. $1 US dollar is 36, 1 ounce of gold is 36 US dollar. They fixed that at that time, and that was the gold standard. For a time, of course, when we buy and sell things, we are actually thinking in terms of gold. Each US dollar is 1/36 ounce of gold. And then, of course, they decided to go off the gold standard. But they still maintain the fiction that it has the same value. It doesn't. Now, 1 ounce of gold is about 1,200 US dollar. That's how much the US dollar has depreciated. But we have been brought up to think of the US dollar as the standard. Why should the US dollar be a standard? Other currencies too can be the standard. But the US will feel very unhappy if you drop the dollar as the standard for currencies. If you don't use the US dollar, the US will go bankrupt immediately because he owes the world $14 trillion, which he cannot pay. He doesn't have that much gold to pay. So if you switch from US to the Chinese currency, the US is going to feel very unhappy. And I think some people had ideas about that, and they have been taught not to have such ideas. But as you know, I suggested at one time, we should have an East Asian currency. And we should have a different way of trading, more like barter trading than the current way of trading. Barter trading, not in the sense that you change goods for goods, but you change value for value. If your import is 100 million, your export is 90 million, then to that particular country, then you have to export 10 million more before you can achieve full payment from both sides. That is one way of doing things, but somehow that idea was not approved by certain authorities. So now we have the Chinese coming out, and China is going to be very, very rich. I know them. I know the people in Malaysia also. We have 26% Chinese people, and they are very, very diligent, very dynamic. They can build any country very, very quickly as they have built China. So imagine 1.4 billion Chinese, very productive, becoming very, very rich. Why should they use the US dollar? I mean, they are the people with the money, with the property, with the wealth. So one day they may decide that if you want to buy, you have to use the Chinese currency, and you will have no choice. You will have to use Chinese currency. I don't know how long we can resist, but it will come one day.
take a lady this time in the corner. She has been standing, so we'll take her question.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi yang berhormat. Thank you very much, Datin, for giving me the opportunity to ask question, firing question. Okay, this is in relation to education. By the way, let me introduce myself. My name is Roslinawati Muhammad Roslan. I am Deputy Dean Academic in Sultan Hassan Al Bolkiah Institute of Education, a graduate school of education. We are the faculty that serving pre-service teachers for Brunei Darussalam. So my burning question is actually, what are the crucial initiatives that Malaysia has been putting effort in improving the current education system in Malaysia that maybe Brunei can follow, inshallah. Thank you.
Well, education is of course very important. Before, just the ability to read and write constitutes education. So people are taught how to read and to write, but the contents was not very, not really contributing to the career of the person who has acquired this knowledge. In fact, in the past, I remember that for the civil service, they always accept BAs and MAs, although what they had to do had nothing to do with those subjects, those art subjects that they learn. They need to learn about administration, about management. But now we are more practical. We plan education to suit the career that the person will follow, or to suit the ambition of the country to make progress in certain areas. Today, I think most people want to study engineering, science, and the various branches of engineering. In particular, today, it is all about IT, about engineering and electronics, etc. So when you have an education program, you need to think about the future of the people you are educating, not just to teach him to read and write, but what will he do after he has graduated? And that means that you have to know the market. What is the market looking for? What kind of people? If you know what the market is looking for, then you can design the education program to suit the needs of the market. Today, I believe in most countries, the concentration is on engineering and technology, because these are the people who are easily employable. Education just for the sake of acquiring knowledge is no longer relevant today. Education must be related to the ambition or to the planning of the country for its future. Then only they will be employable. Thank you.
I know there are many people here yearning to ask Yang Muhammad questions, because I'm seeing a lot of hands up. But I'm afraid we have to close. Unfortunately, Yang Ahmad Muhammad will need to catch a flight later on. We would love to have Yang Ahmad Muhammad longer. We're enjoying this conversation so much. Once again, Yang Ahmad Muhammad, on behalf of the University of Darussalam, I'd like to say a huge thank you for spending some time with us today, especially to deliver the distinguished lecture and having a conversation with us. Thank you very much. It's such a privilege.
Yang Berhormat, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Now we would like to invite Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri Setia Awang Haji Hamzah bin Haji Sulaiman, Minister of Education and Chair of UBD Council, to present a token of appreciation to Yang Amat Berhormat Tun Dr Mahathir Mohamad, Prime Minister of Malaysia. With that, we have come to the end of this afternoon's distinguished lecture, and on behalf of the organizer, we thank you for your presence. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.